All right, new questions today about President Obama's use of executive power. He says he's got to go it alone because Congress isn't doing its job, and says to his critics who don't like it, quote, "So sue me." Well, now some analysts on both the right and the left say the president's use of executive orders is dangerous. One critic is Wayne Cruz, who wrote a piece on Forbes.com, quote, "This absolutely imperious style is threatening, coming from a national government characterized by lack of transparency and accountability." Wayne Cruz is the director of the technology studies at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Wayne, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so let's talk about this. Everybody hears about executive orders, but there are really a lot of different things, memos and different directives that the president can use and has been using.
Yeah, that's right. You know, I looked at this last year. I looked at the number of laws that Congress passed was 72. And at the same time, the federal regulatory agencies put out over 3,600 regulations. So you had a situation of Congress passing, of regulators putting out 51 regulations for every law that Congress passed, but it goes beyond that. And as we say at the office, you know, the Constitution isn't perfect, but it's better than what we have now. We already have this huge multiple of regulations over laws passed by Congress, but Obama now has pledged to use the pen and the phone. He's done this through his State of the Union address, and lately he's become much more emphatic about it with respect to immigration rules, environmental rules, and things of that sort. And I was looking at this. He has the option of doing executive orders to do it, but it's really not executive orders that so far it's coming from. He did do a rise in the minimum wage for federal contractors by executive order, and he did put in place these protections for workers who tell about compensation practices at companies. But he's also doing these guidance documents, and it's guidance documents, it's memoranda to agencies to affect a lot of this agenda, and the agencies are doing it too. Just for example, the Obamacare extensions, remember there have been 22 of these, and I was wondering, how does this happen? We know a law didn't get passed, we know a regulation didn't go through, so what happened? Well, when it occurred, the IRS issued a blog post, a guidance document, a memorandum, and a press release, and similar things have happened in other respects.
Well, Wayne, let me ask you, because a lot of folks, one of the first responses you'll get from the president's supporters, even though he does have people on the left criticizing this as well, because they don't want to set this precedent for a Republican president, they'll point back and say presidents of both parties have used a lot of these, and President Obama hasn't come close to some of the numbers that we've seen, you know, presidents doing this in the thousands. But where do we get to in an analysis of quantity versus quality of what he is doing?
Well, I think there's a difference. You know, I pointed out that he's nowhere close to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who had thousands of executive orders, and I don't know what his notices and guidance documents were, but Obama's nowhere close to that. But the difference now is as the federal government takes over more and more components of the economy, think about it, education, the financial sector, the healthcare system, cybersecurity, new minimum wage laws, green energy, government investment, all of these, most of these should be the province of the private sector. But the more the federal government takes over these areas, the more that pen and phone can be issued without doing a law, without doing an executive order, but just doing winks and nods and other kinds of notices to agencies.
Yeah, and a lot of folks think that those agencies have turned into an unconstitutional, essentially a fourth branch.
Well, it's true. I mean, you think about the Federal Communications Commission is trying to regulate net neutrality on the internet, to re-regulate telecommunications. It's looked at media practices in the nation's media. The financial sector is growing. Some of these guidance, these new notices coming out of the Obama administration are looking at things like changing the rules with respect to student loans. One of them is to give students the option of paying back only 10%, capping their payment on their student loan at only 10% of their income after they graduate. Well, the thought is nice, but is that the role of the federal government to do? And it also exacerbates the problem of escalating education costs. And similarly, the administration has issued a directive to the Treasury Department to put together these new retirement security instruments whereby employees at new jobs are automatically signed up into an investment program. Now, this is kind of the government's nudge approach to trying to regulate the economy. But what does that do? Is it really a smart idea now for the federal government to be pushing investment in markets when the market has just hit a peak? Yeah, so it's that kind of things. And other things are worrisome too with respect to data collection on wages and compensation at government contractors, because all of this is going to have ripple effects.
It will. And we know there are a lot of tools there to the executive branch, but now some pushback from the House. We'll watch the threatened lawsuit by the Speaker over there. Wayne, thank you. A very thought-provoking piece.
Thank you so much.